A self-proclaimed neighborhood enforcer pointed a gun at a teenage boy in his own front yard, unaware that the boy's father, a battle-hardened Special Forces veteran, was watching, armed, and ready. Marcus Hayes was done with chaos. At 45, his 2 decades in the U.S. Army Special Forces, countless missions, medals he never mentioned, stories he rarely shared except with his son Ethan, were behind him. He craved normalcy, a quiet house, a steady job, nights unbroken by gunfire or radio static. When he found a modest 3-bedroom home on a tree-lined street in Franklin, Tennessee, he didn't hesitate. Close enough for work and school, far enough for calm. The house wasn't fancy, but it was solid, with a backyard for Ethan and neighbors who seemed decent, at least on paper. Marcus should have known peace for men like him never came cheap. The first days were uneventful. Ethan, 15 and sharp as a blade, unpacked boxes and set up his room, still smelling of cardboard and new carpet. He was thrilled. New school, fresh start, no more moving between bases. But Marcus noticed the stairs. Cars slowing as they passed, a woman with a golden retriever crossing the street to avoid them, a delivery guy hesitating despite the porch light. Ethan saw it too, glancing at his dad when a beat-up green Chevy truck crawled by one morning, its driver staring without blinking. "Same guy?" Ethan asked, brushing crumbs off his hoodie. "Same guy," Marcus muttered. "Don't worry." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Should I?" Marcus gave a half-smile. "I'll tell you when I do." But he was watching. That truck circled twice that week. Once, they parked a few houses down and a wiry white man in his 50s stepped out, sunglasses too big for his face, something tucked under his jacket. Neighbors barely reacted, some even waved like they knew him. Marcus didn't. That weekend, Marcus installed 2 security cameras, one on the porch, one above the garage. Ethan handed him tools and fetched the ladder without a word. No panic, no fuss, just a quiet strain like a storm brewing. That night, as Ethan brushed his teeth, he asked, "Think they'll stop staring now?" Marcus paused. "Some folks take longer to accept different. Doesn't mean we stop living." "Miss the base?" "I miss knowing who's got my back." Silence fell. Ethan went to bed. Marcus reviewed camera footage on his phone, memorizing patterns. Nothing blatant, but something was off. The truck lingered too long, the same dog walker passed at 9:04 every night, no kids played outside, no one knocked to say hello. This wasn't peace, not yet, but Marcus wasn't here to start a war. Trained to wait, watch, and act only when forced, he held back. Greg Larson didn't need a badge to act like a cop, but he wore one anyway. A shiny fake HOA security badge clipped to his belt beside a gun he carried with pride, not training. His job, nothing. His authority, zero. Ask Greg, though, and he'd call himself the last line of defense in a crumbling world. Self-appointed, he claimed to protect community standards, griping about the neighborhood's changes with a smile that never reached his eyes. Men like Greg start small, reporting suspicious activity, leaving passive-aggressive notes about trash cans or paint colors, but they always escalate. He'd lived on Willow Lane for 22 years, knew every dog, license plate, and how long your guests could stay before he slipped a warning under their wiper. Most neighbors found him annoying. Some ignored him. A few liked him around. He said what they wouldn't. When Greg saw Marcus and Ethan move in, something in him tightened. He didn't care about Marcus's military service, the neat lawn, or the friendly waves. He saw 2 black faces on his street, and he wasn't subtle. Marcus clocked him early. The green truck's drive-bys weren't random. Greg slowed when Ethan was outside, lingered when he wasn't, staring at the mailbox, the windows. One afternoon, Marcus caught him on camera creeping up their driveway, pretending to inspect the sidewalk. Ethan watched from the living room. What's he doing? Acting like he owns something. Marcus filed a report with a local HOA. A week later, they sent a form letter. "Thank you for your input. Please note that Greg's security is not an active department." Translation, Greg wasn't theirs, but no one stopped him. Marcus knew his type. Greg strutted like he owned the world, his opinions heavy because they were loud, boundaries meant nothing. He'd never been forced to respect them. At the corner store, he cornered Marcus. "You the new guy at 412? He asked, blocking the exit. Marcus stayed polite. "Yeah." Got approval for that mailbox? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Didn't know I needed it. We got ways here, like to keep things a certain way. Marcus didn't smile. I'm not here to ruin your vision, Greg chuckled, sharp. Just so you know. Lots of new folks lately, not always the right kind. Marcus stepped past him, slow and silent. From that moment, Greg decided Marcus was trouble, not for anything he did, but for refusing to bow. Greg hated being ignored. A week later, Ethan was in the yard fixing his mountain bike's chain near the driveway. Greg's truck pulled up, and he stared for a full minute before rolling down his window. You live here? He asked, voice flat. Ethan stood, confused. Yeah. Got proof? Ethan blinked. Sorry. You heard me. Marcus stepped outside, calm but direct. Problem here? Greg grinned, like he was doing Marcus a favor. Just check in the neighborhood. Check from your truck, Marcus said. Greg opened his mouth, thought better, and drove off. Ethan exhaled. What was that? Exactly what you saw. Why didn't you get mad? Marcus paused. That's what he wants. Guys like him expect me to lose it so he can say he was right. Ethan looked down. That sucks. Yeah, Marcus said. It does. Bruce's Greg wasn't done. This wasn't about rules or property lines anymore. It was about control, and he'd push until someone stopped him. On a warm Tuesday afternoon, Ethan got home from school, tossed his backpack on the porch, and grabbed his bike. He rode loops around the block to clear his head, nothing wild. Marcus was inside, reheating leftovers, glancing at the Ring camera feed on his phone. Habit, not paranoia. Ethan pedaled up the street, turned the corner, and passed the empty house across from theirs. Then Greg's green truck appeared, crawling slower than ever. This time, he didn't drive by. Greg pulled over, parked opposite the Hayes' driveway, and stepped out. No pretense of checking mailboxes. He marched straight for Ethan. Ethan slowed his bike, heart pounding, but he recalled his dad's late-night advice. When danger comes, don't let fear drive. Breathe, stay sharp, stand tall. He took a deep breath, steadying his voice. Greg's hand hovered near the gun on his hip. You don't live here, he said, loud and even. Ethan squinted. I do. No, I don't think so, Greg snapped. I've been watching. You're on other people's property. Ethan planted his feet. I'm on the sidewalk. Greg stepped closer. Sidewalks, community property, not for you to just use. Inside, Marcus dropped his fork. The camera feed showed Greg's stance, his hand, Ethan's tension. Then Greg pulled his gun, not aimed, but angled low, a wordless threat. Marcus moved, fast, precise, no panic. He opened the living room safe, grabbed his registered Sig Sauer, standard from his service days. No running, just steady steps to the front door as Greg took another step toward Ethan. Take one more step with that gun anywhere near my son, Marcus said, and you won't take another. Greg spun around. Marcus stood at the porch's edge, gun visible but not raised, grip firm, voice steady. Greg opened his mouth, but no words came. His hand shook on his weapon. Drop it, now, Marcus said. You've got 3 seconds. Greg froze. Marcus stepped forward. Slow, deliberate. Greg noticed the Ring camera, neighbors peeking through blinds, the street's eerie silence. He unholstered his gun, set it on the sidewalk, and raised his hands, suddenly aware he wasn't untouchable. Just then, Harold Jenkins, a retired cop 2 houses down, stepped onto his porch, phone in hand. I've called 911, Marcus. Cops are coming. Harold had seen Greg harass others before and wasn't standing by this time. His voice bolstered Marcus, shrinking Greg further. Marcus nodded slightly, eyes locked on Greg. Back up. 5 steps, Marcus ordered. Greg stumbled through them. Sit. Greg sank to the curb, defiance crumbling, his face flushed, shirt clinging to his back. He looked small, overwhelmed. Marcus turned to Ethan. You okay? Ethan nodded, eyes wide but steady. I'm good. Inside, but now. Ethan headed to the porch, glancing back twice before slipping inside, watching through the blinds, fists clenched. Marcus loomed over Greg and called 911 to confirm, calmly reporting a man threatening a minor with a gun, giving his name, address, and noting the footage. Greg stayed silent until the police arrived 10 minutes later, then tried to flip the story. "He threatened me," he told the officers. "I was defending myself." The cop glanced at Marcus. "Got video?" "Front angle, clear audio," Marcus said. "Want it airdropped?" They took Greg's gun, checked his ID. He'd been warned before for posing as HOA security. No charges stuck, until now. They cuffed him, put him in the squad car, no fight left. As the car pulled away, a young officer eyed Marcus. "You handled that differently than most." Marcus didn't smile. "I'm trained for worse." Greg's gun wasn't what shook Marcus most. It was how many neighbors watched and said nothing. Before the police car left, the neighborhood chat lit up. Marcus didn't join, but Lisa Carter, next door, did. She sent him screenshots. "What happened at 412? Anyone know why Greg got arrested?" New guy had a gun too. Just saying, "This is why we need background checks." Marcus read every word, hands on the kitchen table. Ethan sat across, arms crossed, biting his nails. "You gonna say something?" Ethan asked. "No." "Why not? They're acting like you started it." "Let them talk," Marcus said softly. "They weren't out there. They didn't see what almost happened." Ethan stood restless. "You should let me say something. I handled it." "You shouldn't have to," Marcus said, meeting his son's eyes. "You're 15, Ethan. That's my job." The next morning, checking the mailbox, Marcus found an unsigned note tucked under a bill, scrawled in shaky teen handwriting. "Thank you for not shooting him. I saw it all from my window. I want to be like you when I grow up. Strong without hurting anyone." Marcus read it twice, said nothing to Ethan, and slipped it into his desk drawer. Proof that despite the silence, young eyes were watching, learning. The silence wasn't angry, just heavy. That night, Lisa stopped by with cornbread and an apologetic look. She'd lived there 10 years, knew Greg enough to dodge him, but not enough to speak up. Until now. "Some folks here," she whispered, "let him do this too long. You're not the first he targeted, just the first who didn't flinch." Marcus nodded, thanked her, and shut the door. The next day, someone spray-painted "Trouble" on Marcus's trash can. Ethan grabbed a sponge. "I'll clean it." Marcus stopped him. "Leave it." "Why?" "They want a reaction. They want us rattled. We won't give it." It stayed 2 days until the city replaced the can. No one confessed. No one apologized. The stares continued. At the hardware store, whispers followed Marcus. An older man in a camo hat muttered, "They'll start trouble, won't be none," loud enough to hear. Marcus kept walking. Ethan started carrying a pocket knife in his backpack. When Marcus found it, their first fight since moving erupted. "No weapons," Marcus said. "I'm not starting anything. You're surviving wrong," Marcus snapped, voice rising. "You think a knife makes you safer? It gives them an excuse." "So what?" Ethan shot back. "Just wait for the next Greg? You wait with your head up? You act with discipline, not fear, not impulse. That's the difference between walking away and not." Ethan went quiet, but he put the knife back in his drawer. The story broke beyond the neighborhood. Someone leaked the ring video anonymously. Facebook, Reddit, then a small local paper. The clip, under a minute, was raw. Greg's voice, his gun, Marcus's calm, Ethan's steadiness. No commentary needed. Public reaction split like dry wood. Some praised Marcus's restraint, others questioned his gun. Some blamed Greg, others said he was protecting the community. One phrase echoed. He pointed a gun at a kid, and the kid didn't even raise his voice. Days later, an unsigned letter was taped to Marcus's door. "You're not welcome here. Leave before something happens you can't fix." He didn't report it. He didn't pack. He stayed. That Sunday, he and Ethan walked to the neighborhood park. Eyes followed them. No one spoke. Marcus nodded at everyone he passed, calm, unwavering. Ethan whispered, "You scared?" Marcus said, "Son, when people look at you with fear, they either attack or wait for your mistake. I'm giving them neither." The message was clear. This wasn't just one man. It was a neighborhood deciding who belonged. By Monday, Greg Larson was a whispered name. Some shamed, others quietly supportive. The local paper ran a dry headline, "Man detained after dispute with teen in Franklin neighborhood." It downplayed the gun, ignored the badge, omitted the inches between Ethan and a bullet. Marcus wasn't shocked, but someone in the city police took it seriously. Detective Sarah Delgado called Marcus directly. "Mr. Hayes, I saw the video. Let's meet." They met the next day at the public library near Main Street. Ethan stayed home, Marcus went alone. Delgado's tired eyes and blunt tone cut through. She didn't ask about his military record or try to impress. Sitting across a table with the tablet, she said, "You've showed incredible restraint. That man had his finger near the trigger. You didn't blink." "I've seen worse," Marcus said. She nodded. "Doesn't make it right." They'd talked for an hour about Greg's unaddressed complaints, his vague ties to a former HOA president who quietly resigned, how he convinced some he was on a security committee that never existed. People tolerated him, Delgado said, because it was easier than discomfort. Marcus tilted his head. "That's how guys like him take root." She nodded. "Not anymore." Within 2 weeks, Greg faced charges, brandishing a weapon at a minor, impersonating an official, and making terroristic threats. None were felonies, but they meant court dates, legal bills, and a record. The real blow: he was banned from the neighborhood. His self-proclaimed kingdom now had a city-signed no trespass order with his name. The shift wasn't smooth. The HOA held an emergency meeting. Marcus skipped it, but Lisa called after. They tried to downplay it, she said, talked about misunderstandings and community values. "I told them if a kid died, they'd be apologizing to a grieving dad on camera." A few neighbors visited, quiet apologies, baked goods. David Ellis, a school teacher, shook Marcus's hand. "You taught this block a lesson without saying a damn word." Ethan walked taller after that. Not cocky, just lighter. He joined a local basketball team, spending afternoons shooting hoops at the park instead of circling the driveway like he was avoiding notice. The story kept spreading. A local pastor invited Marcus to speak at Sunday service, not to preach, just share. He hesitated, but Ethan said someone might need to hear it, so he went, standing before a packed room at Bethel Community Church, telling the story, no anger, just truth. Then he said something that stuck. Control isn't strength, restraint is. A man with a gun can take a life, but one who holds back when he has every right to act, that's who shapes the future. No fireworks, no parade, just a slow thaw. Weeks later, the HOA passed a new rule. Anyone caught posing as security or harassing residents without cause would be reported to police. No HOA approval needed. Not a revolution, but a start. One evening, Marcus stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching Ethan walk back from practice. Hoodie up, earbuds in, carefree. Lisa called from her yard. "Your boy's fast," Marcus grinned. "Takes after his mom." Ethan laughed, overhearing. One night, Ethan walked into the living room, holding a permission slip. "They want me to talk," he said, "at school, about what happened." Marcus looked up from his paper. "About what?" "Anti-bullying program, community awareness. Miss Thompson says my story could help." Marcus considered. "You want to?" Ethan shrugged. "I'm not scared to talk, just don't know what to say." "Say what you know," Marcus said, "not what they expect." Ethan studied the paper, then nodded. 2 weeks later, Marcus sat at the back of the school gym as Ethan stood under fluorescent lights before 200 students. No mic, just his voice. "He pointed a gun at me," Ethan said, blunt. "Said I didn't belong, but I was on my street. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I stood there. My dad stepped in before it got worse." He paused, scanning the crowd. Some kids leaned forward. A few teachers wiped their eyes. "I think a lot of us get looked at like we don't belong, not just me. Maybe it's how we dress, where we're from, how we talk. But we do. We belong in our homes, our schools, our sidewalks." The words hung heavy. Afterward, students shook his hand. Some asked questions, others stood quietly, unsure what to say but moved. In the car, Marcus spoke. "You handled that like a man." Ethan gave a faint smile. Didn't feel like it that day. Real strength isn't how you feel in the moment, it's what you choose not to do when everything says fight. That night, Marcus wrote a list of principles he'd taught new soldiers. Stay calm under pressure, keep eyes on the exit, never assume the room's safe. He rewrote it for Ethan and taped it to the fridge. Soon after, the city council asked Marcus to speak. They were updating community engagement policies and wanted input. Marcus wore a simple shirt and jeans, no data or slides, just himself. At the mic, he said, "I don't need protection from my son. I need to know he won't be seen as a threat before he opens his mouth." Some nodded, others didn't move. It didn't matter. He continued, "Some think safety means making different people feel watched. That's not safety. That's fear with a badge." After, a council member approached. "You changed minds tonight." Marcus didn't thank him, just said, "Hope they stay changed when the next kid's on their sidewalk." Ethan sprawled on the couch, shoes off, watching an old kung fu movie, volume cranked. Marcus stood in the doorway, arms crossed, silent. Ethan glanced over. "What?" "Nothing," Marcus said. "You're good. Want me to turn it down?" "Nah, keep it." He grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at the kitchen table. For the first time in weeks, his hands felt steady. Outside, the porch light flicked on, triggered by a squirrel or breeze. Nothing urgent, just doing its job. But even as calm settled, Marcus knew it came at a cost, one he and Ethan carried in ways the neighborhood never would. 4 months had passed since Greg stood handcuffed on the curb, face red, silent. Marcus and Ethan found a near-normal rhythm. The lawn was mowed every Saturday, trash cans lined up like clockwork, neighbors waved more, some polite, some guilty. Ethan grew taller, his voice deeper, his steps surer. He still joked, but there was a new awareness beneath. Marcus watched quietly. In fleeting moments, he caught Ethan staring too long out the front window, or pausing before stepping outside. It passed fast, but Marcus saw. The kind of mark people carry even when wounds stop bleeding. One Saturday in the garage, Ethan picked up Marcus's old combat backpack. "You carried this every day?" Marcus nodded. "When I had to." "It's heavy." "Had to be." Ethan slung it on, wobbling. "I couldn't run a mile with this." "You don't need to," Marcus said. "You're not fighting my wars." "Feels like I'm in one sometimes," Ethan muttered, almost to himself. Marcus met his eyes. "You are. Just a different kind." That afternoon, they sat on the porch, sipping lemonade, the sky bruising purple in the late sun. An elderly couple walked their dog and waved. Marcus waved back. Ethan nodded. Then Ethan asked, "Think Greg ever really thought I was a threat?" Marcus took a moment. He didn't care about truth. He cared about what made him feel in control. "You got in the way. That's it." Ethan leaned back, legs stretched, and he never apologized. "Guys like that rarely do," Marcus said. "So why didn't you do more?" Ethan pressed. "Like really go after him?" Marcus turned to him. "Justice isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's exposure. Greg's gone. His lies are out. People know what he did. And you're still here." Ethan thought it over. "Feels like a small win." "Always starts small," Marcus said. "Then it grows." That night, Marcus typed a post for the neighborhood forum he'd never used. To those who watched and said nothing, silence isn't neutral. To those who stood up after, thank you. To those still unsure where you stand, ask what you'd do if it was your kid on that sidewalk. He didn't send it. Instead, he called Ethan to the kitchen and read it aloud. Ethan grinned. "That's good," Marcus said. "I think I'll let living speak louder than words." Ethan nodded. "That's what you did." No fairy tale finale awaited, no parades, no sweeping redemption swept the internet, yet the porch held its peace. Ethan strode to school, eyes forward, no longer scanning for threats. He ignored his dad's ring alerts, slept soundly, laughed freely. Marcus slid his gun from the front door to the bedroom safe. Not out of naivety, but because for the first time in years, he dared believe it could stay there. They claimed more than a house, more than a corner of Tennessee asphalt. They see space, dignity, the unshakable right to live unafraid. To Marcus, that was worth more than any courtroom win or news ticker. True triumph wasn't just outlasting the storm. It was emerging with your humanity intact. Strength lies not in fighting every battle, but in choosing which ones define you. If this story strikes a chord, share it. Amplify the truth, shatter the silence. And if you haven't joined us yet, hit that subscribe button. Stay for the stories that matter, the ones that change how we see the world.